Hey guys, PIEGUYRULZ here with
Phoenix Pen.
once again, and we are going to be talking about the last half of week 4 of the Summer of Steven, as well as a few other topics about like the whole summer, how we felt about this way of airing episodes and other such things. So yes, if you want to listen to the first part of this discussion, the link is here, description, annotation, blah, blah, blah. All right, so Kindergarten Kid.
Oh my God, this is supposedly the beginning of the season 4 of Steven Universe, but because this is a continuation of the week where we had beta Earthlings, so many other things that had to do with fusions, corruption, space travel, the moon, and now we have Looney Tunes. I was not expecting this.
I was not either, but as soon as I saw Peridot and Steven standing in the desert with the background, I knew it. I'm like, this is a Roadrunner cartoon. This is just, and then it was. And I think there was maybe like a minute and a half of Steven Universe in the middle of this Looney Tunes cartoon. And I don't say that as a bad thing. I just say that there was some of the let's talk about like corrupted gems in there, but the rest of it was Looney Tunes fun, and all I can really say is just that I enjoyed it. This didn't really click with me like I think it clicked with you, but I enjoyed it, and I think no matter what, you have to give this show props for at least trying to do these really different kinds of episodes like this one and the next one.
Yeah, I think this episode, it's one of those things, like if you like the humor, it wins you over, and it's so strange, like in the middle of all this deep stuff, like seriously, last episode we just saw Steven like be bubbled by himself in space, and you know, the rubies and all this other things. Suddenly I'm just like, is that Sonic? Is that supposed to be Sonic? He's running up a loop. Oh, it's Sonic. No, wait a minute. It's not Sonic. It's Roadrunner. And this is a Roadrunner cartoon. And Peridot is like Wile E. Coyote. And I just like, you know, obviously it's like fun references, but it's just one of those things. It's like, I was not expecting this. And it's so strange and outside of the normal Steven Universe pattern of here's like a normal human problem or here's a gem hunt. And now it's just like a Looney Tunes cartoon. And the first moment where I realized this is not going to be normal Steven Universe is when the injector drill fell on Peridot. And I thought she would have totally gotten poofed from that. And she just kind of crawls out. I'm like, wait a minute. I just had this moment like, dude, the drill just fell on her. Am I seeing this? And then you know, when she's like all this other moments, I'm like, they're not going to do this, right? She's going to get poofed, right? No, she's not. This is Roadrunner cartoon, and there's no bodily damage happening to Wile E. Coyote. That's what I enjoyed.
Do you have anything else to say about the Looney Tunes aspect? Because I mean, what can you really say?
The only other thing about the Looney Tunes aspect is because I think it's funny and it's weird, but it also kind of, I don't want to say it's kind of like Say Uncle, but there's a little bit of the canon being kind of stretched and loosened a little bit, because I was thinking maybe Peridot is really strong and resilient, or is it just because of the conceit of the episode that she's not really poofing when she's falling off a giant canyon? So I actually looked on Wikipedia, and I found out that Peridots are actually formed deep into the mantle where there's like magma and things. So they're a little bit harder than other types of gemstones, which are formed in the Earth's crust. So I'm like, maybe that's just like one of those weird things that's like, haha, it works, but that's not what they were trying to intentionally do. But it was just kind of an interesting coincidence.
I had the same exact thought of just like, now, is this show trying to say that Peridots are hard to poof, or is this is Looney Tunes and don't think about it? And it's hard to say. I mean, we have seen her be poofed. Like, Garnet did do it. So yeah, I don't know. So far, we don't really have any evidence to say either way. Also weird because it's the first episode of the next season, and it's explicitly about cleaning up the mess that Jasper left. So it's not like just this random standalone episode that you can just like brush off. It is a part of it. And that was the only thing that I felt was weird. But outside of that, I think nothing else in the episode was really like out of context for Steven Universe. Like, it was definitely Looney Tunes.
Yeah, no, it was funny. And it had tons of really funny faces and weird things happening because it is a Looney Tunes cartoon. So you can have characters have their plans backfire, and it's not like a big setback, because in Looney Tunes, that's it. The whole joke is there's lots of setbacks to a goal, and it's not supposed to be serious. It's funny.
I love the fact that Garnet and the others were just literally watching. Like, they just watched. And I had a feeling at the beginning of the episode when Garnet was just like, okay, we're going over here. I had a feeling that Garnet saw something and just kind of wanted to stick around for the show. I thought that was pretty cool. Especially, that also helps because it's like Steven was never in any danger. If Steven were to ever get like seriously hurt, they would have stepped in.
Yeah, and I guess the whole point of this episode was in that marshmallow scene in the middle.
Yes, that was like the Steven universe. That and a little bit at the beginning and a little bit at the end. I love Steven's infinite marshmallows, by the way. I just have to point that out, that Steven just had must have been literally 200 marshmallows that he threw at Peridot, and the bag was still full. So, but yeah, I think the beginning, Garnet explains about the bubbling and how, Amethyst is isn't bubbling then kind of the same thing as Jasper, putting them in cages? And Garnet's well, it's not ideal, but they're put in a state of stasis where they can feel comfortable. They're not harming themselves. They're not harming others. And I think that's an explanation for it, and does kind of show that bubbling is pretty perfect.
Humane. Yeah. Humane.
It's a Pokeball. Then there's the scene in the middle. I liked Steven's explanation of why the corrupted gems, and honestly, why wild animals act the way they do, and that it's that, there's always someone hunting them, and they're confused and scared, and they feel I don't know if you've ever had any anxiety attacks or anything, but whenever I feel a lot of anxiety, I kind of feel like I'm being pelted with something, waves of just something is happening to me. And to be a wild animal, that kind of feeling is just always there. That's got to be really disorienting.
I haven't had that kind of level of anxiety, but I definitely have a lot of empathy. Anytime I see anyone, feeling really bad or feeling really hurt, I definitely empathize much more than I need to. Just that feeling of oh man, look at this person, they're trying their best and they're failing, or this, this animal. Steven is trying to teach empathy. He's trying to put Peridot in that situation because that's the way she can understand it. She's not going to understand it the way that Steven does because he has a hardwired empathy chip like me. But, some people need to be in that position where it's look, I'm not trying to hurt you or make you feel uncomfortable, but you're not going to understand until you experience the way this animal or this corrupted gem experiences the world. This gem experiences the world as a never-ending nightmare of marshmallows or something.
I love the way he explained it. It wasn't this hokey info dump or Steven being really preachy. It was just a thing with marshmallows. That's such a Steven Universe great way to explain this concept that applies not just to the corrupted gems, but to wild animals in the real world. I think.
And I know what they're saying. Okay, well, corrupted gems, they're not exactly like wild animals because it's very different, right? A gem is doesn't know what it's doing, or it's maybe sometimes malicious and is actually trying to attack. Other times it's trying to run away. So it's not we can really figure out that they're all harmless. Obviously some harm others, but there's the idea that you don't need to hurt it.
They don't mean to do what they're doing, even if they are harming.
Yeah, I guess. But in the end, I don't know if I really particularly thought the solution that Peridot did, which was just grab onto the gem and try to get it off. I don't know if I really thought that was going to be the conclusion after the whole marshmallow scene.
It's a less violent way of doing it than, the way she shivved Jasper Fusion or Jasper Corruption. I mean, that would have kind of been maybe a little bit weird after that, touching speech to just have here's a piece of metal that I'm just going to ram into you to poof you.
But yeah, so in general, this episode was very funny and goofy, but then there's that little bit that's so not preachy, but very
Steven University.
Yeah. There's a couple of lines throughout this week's episodes that are very simple but explain a lot.
And then there's the bit at the end about how Peridot now has a bubble and it's green and the bubble goes to the barn. That was interesting. And I'm sure we could sit here and speculate for hours about what does it mean? But I think maybe it doesn't mean anything. Maybe it's just a cute little, this is just something different Peridot does. But either way, I thought it was cool to have a green bubble.
Yeah, and I didn't know, I guess all gems can bubble. I don't know how she suddenly decided to bubble.
It just happened. Maybe it's Steven's influence somehow. I don't know. But
maybe she wants to be a crystal gem, and this is what crystal gems do.
Maybe it's just an empathy thing, like you were saying about how Steven was teaching her empathy. Maybe once you truly empathize, I don't know. I mean, I think...
Yeah, I don't mind it, and I'm happy that it didn't just go to the temple area. It went to the barn, because then you feel oh, the barn is its own funny kind of base.
It's Titans East. That's how I will always think about it.
Yeah, and I actually thought, for a second, I thought Lapis was going to unbubble it. And I would be it'd be running around the barn, ruining all the meat morphs. And no.
Yeah. So that was just a cute little thing. Just a cool little cameo from Lapis. Just chilling. She was reading a magazine. Anything else? Just a pretty simple episode, I think.
Yeah, the only other comment is I thought the season intro would have changed.
Yep, that made me sad. I think they had some explanation of why why the first intro changed and that like they had to do it and now they don't have to do it, so they're not going to or something. It's sad though, because you want it, and it's like similar to the kind of shows that Rebecca and the crew are kind of trying to emulate and animate and other action show and stuff that do kind of have this evolving theme. It would have been nice. Honestly, I'd be happy even if they just kind of had Peridot and Lapis just in a group shot towards the end. They didn't change anything else, but just kind of did that. That would be cool.
Yeah, and I guess it's one of those things because I thought Amethyst's outfit changed, and but it's look, I'm not upset. I actually really like the theme. That's probably why if they redid the song, I would even be like, oh, I missed the old song. So we can't be happy either way.
I think it's like if they could, like if they had the budget to do it, I'm sure they would. I'm sure they'd want to do even just like minor alterations because that'd just be cool. But if Cartoon Network's budgeting meant that either we got that or we got a new episode, I'd rather one more episode to the show than a cooler theme song. Because the theme song as is still pretty awesome. And what do you do about the fact that Lapis and Peridot are kind of crystal gems now? You'd have to change the song because it's
and I think
taking you down.
I think somebody was telling me that they wish that Peridot got poofed in the Kindergarten Kid just so she could reappear with a star.
Okay.
They were really waiting for a new outfit change for Peridot.
I thought about that. Honestly, I had that thought too. And also I was thinking that Amethyst would get poofed this weekend. Nope. But we can talk about that at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, Phoenix Pen, do you know your fusion?
Do I know it? I know who my favorite fusion is. Do you know your fusion?
My favorite fusion is definitely Smoky Quartz. I like no joke, no lie. Coolest fusion, even before this episode, just super cool. Like just super cool. Like some of the other ones do have personality, and maybe not Opal, maybe not Alexandrite. Sugalite and Sardonyx definitely have personalities, but their personalities are a little kind of basic, one-notey. Not in a bad way, just that they are. Just that we don't know enough about them yet. Sardonyx we learn a little bit more about here, I guess. But Smoky Quartz was fused because Steven and Amethyst have low self-esteem. No, and that transfers into the fusion in a really interesting way, but it also maintains both of them being jokey about it.
Yeah, I did not see this coming at all.
Gosh,
and
no.
I was very happy in the beginning. I'm like, oh, they're going to show Smokey. Woohoo, that's great. Just for the record, my favorite fusion is Opal, and it's not... I agree she doesn't have much of a personality. I just like it that she was in the first fusion we get to see. She has a giant woman, and for me, it already solidifies her as a very cool character because we see two characters, Pearl and Amethyst, who both have their own weaknesses, and they come together to be a much more solid and stable character. Not that we know much about Opal. It's just kind of fun. I'm like, hey, Opal, that's cool. I want Amethyst and Pearl both to be happy and be able to fuse and form like a more put together character. So in this episode, I'm like, okay, we're not going to see Opal, but Smokey it'll do. It'll do.
And then Sardonyx.
Yeah, a big amount of character development for Sardonyx in a very strange way.
Yeah, let me say how I feel about this episode overall before we start talking about specific things. I definitely enjoyed it, but personally, it didn't quite click with me, and also, I wish there had been more conflict. I know the conflict was that Sardonyx, and by extension, Garnet and Pearl didn't give Smokey, Steven, Amethyst the spotlight that they needed and the attention that they wanted. I know that was the conflict, and there was kind of a little conflict at the end of the room breaking apart, but there wasn't much conflict, and I feel like if they had added maybe just a little more, this episode would have clicked with me in a way that otherwise I just see it as just kind of this funny episode.
Yeah, it is a funny episode, and I also am a little bit confused by it because it is one of the most like meta episodes, very fourth wall breaking, but kind of a little bit confusing. Like, what was the point? Like, I really liked the idea of Sardonyx and Smoky Quartz interacting as fusions. Like, wow, super great.
This was the first time. This is the first time two full crystal gem fusions can talk to each other outside of like Garnet talking to Opal. You know what I mean? Because Steven can only fuse with Smokey. So this is so far the only combination of that we can have. Yeah, it was a cool idea, but continue your thought. I did feel like this whole episode, I don't want to say it's pointless. Like, it had a beginning, middle, and end, but I didn't really understand what they were trying to insinuate. Like, Smokey doesn't have a
real thing, like doesn't have a real reason to exist, or why is the connection there?
It's a little, I don't want to say cringy, but a little awkward in that we already know that Smokey has like self-esteem issues. And so like this whole episode is Sardonyx kind of pushing, and I know that's the point, but it's just kind of like we know. And the episode does almost seem to, imply that like Smoky Quartz is just a yo-yo.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking. Like, I was kind of hoping, like, what of course, I didn't get spoiled in the episode. So my theory was that what is one thing that Steven and Amethyst both like to do and have in common, which is they like to eat food. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I don't think any other gem really partake in except for Amethyst. She just really likes binge eating and eating, and Steven likes that too. So I thought something that would have in common is like maybe they could like consume like a large amount of air and make a sonic boom or something.
Smoky Quartz at the pie eating contest episode confirmed.
I thought it was going to be something like that. Like they realized, like, I don't know, they can do weird things with like things that are like yo-yos, like go to the Ferris wheel, and they're like, maybe they're very spontaneous, like much more than all the other. But yeah, I felt like the ending of like a yo-yo. I mean, I don't know how I feel about this.
We could have had an episode where maybe Amethyst and Steven felt almost, because they're both kind of feeling insecure about who they are, maybe they got a little addicted to fusing. Not like in an unhealthy, like cry for help type way, but just in a, okay, guys, you're overdoing this. Like, we don't need to see Smoky Quartz all the time, or what, like something like that. But then maybe, I don't know, that might have awkward implications with the fact that Garnet is always fused.
I guess, yeah, it could have been done a little bit different. The way, and we'll go into the way it was done, but yeah. I was expecting it to be much more about finding more about Smokey in a less canned way, because this was a very strange way of discussing Smokey and almost putting too much emphasis on the fact of who are you? What are you? What are you like? Like, I don't know. Maybe that was just how the format was. It seemed a little bit like it focused so much energy, but didn't have so much fun.
Well, I mean, it had fun. You can't say that it didn't have fun, but I think it didn't have enough story personally. And
there was no conflict.
Very light, very kind of like, this is going to be fixed conflict. When I first saw Smoky Quartz, I was thinking like very similar to Sardonyx. They're both prance around and like make a big show of things, and they like to kind of, their weapons are both kind of unconventional. It's a giant hammer and a yo-yo. Like, they're similar, so it'd be cool to see them interacting, and this was not really the way that I had kind of expected or wanted.
Yeah, Smokey gave me a very Sardonyx-y vibe.
The one thing I definitely wanted to point out was that Smoky Quartz theme song is amazing. It sounds like a power-up tune, like when you get a power up, like you could probably replace the Starman jingle from Mario with that in like the Mario game, and it would fit.
Yeah, like you said, like power up, like bubbly,
chiptune-y. Yeah,
chiptune-y. I like it.
So I really like that, and the yo-yo. Would you have expected anything different from their weapons combined?
No, the yo-yo is perfect. I swear. Like, if I had to come up with it, that's what I would have done. I would have done shield plus whip equals yo-yo, and it fits their personality of being very, not childish, but like very lighthearted and goofy and jokey, and less like, whatever, a serious fusion.
Yeah. Which means, I mean, the obvious choice for Pearl and Steven would be a parasol.
Oh.
Hoping for that. That'd be cool.
Haha, that would be interesting. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it could be like some sort of, I can't think of anything else that's like that.
Sorry, not to get like too derailed with that, but yeah.
So let's talk about what actually happened in Know Your Fusion. And right. I'm not really negative on it. I enjoyed it, but it dawned on me after watching the episode that Sardonyx reminds me of an actual like writer of the show or an executive at Cartoon Network. The way that she was talking to the audience that she created and talking to Smoky Quartz as a character in a TV show, and this whole TV show, like Sardonyx Tonight and everything, that's one of those things that's like, you either dig it and you think it's great, or you think it's a little bit like strange and you don't exactly know why. That was the problem. I kept flip-flopping between this is really awesome and this is very strange.
It's weird because I almost would say that maybe they didn't go far enough with that idea. Like, look, the joke about Nicki Minaj and Sugilite, that kills. Like, if you know anything about production and the show and like that kind of stuff, I don't know about you, but that killed me. Like I was just dead. I was resurrected a few minutes later, just laughing my butt off because that was amazing. And just because I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, wait, if they just use clips from previous episodes, like, do they have to pay her? And then they made that joke, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
I love it. And I mean, it's very strange. It's like, game is called Do You Like That Little Man? And like stuff like that. I'm like, and then they have like, all the
footage provided by Cartoon Network. That was the other big thing.
That was so strange.
I think they could have gone even further with it. I do. And so I think that it kind of does exist in this limbo where it's really funny for certain parts, and then the rest of it is just kind of a little just confusing of just what is the point? Why do this? I think the interesting lore thing we learned is that fusions have a room in the temple, which, I mean, we knew Garnet had one, but like Garnet is a crystal gem, so like, you'd kind of assume Garnet would have one. You wouldn't necessarily think that each fusion would. And then the fact that they break apart when they're unfused, what does that mean about Garnet's room in the temple? When they're unfused, do all those bubble gems just like go scattershot into the void of the room? Like, I'm thinking about this too much, I know, but
it's interesting. It kind of makes you feel like fusions are not, they have their own personalities and they can exist for some time, but it also is a bit like unnecessary, maybe necessary. I don't know.
Do you think they made a room for Sardonyx, or do you think that just that's how it worked?
I think so. Again, the writers can answer this and they have their own theory. But from my impression, I just thought it just appears kind of like a fusion it's not like it's predetermined how it's going to look and how it's going to act. It just kind of spawns it.
Which makes sense because of Rose's room, and Rose's room just literally spawns whatever Steven wants. So it makes sense the rest of the temple could just transmogrify itself however.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I wasn't thinking you could you had to build a room. I just thought these two are in their own room and now it's going to be whatever that fusion is thinking, and whatever that fusion's like will create a room for Smokey, which is like, I don't know, part mountainous kind of area that's like garbagey and
fry bits everywhere
in clouds. I don't know. I
think the rest of the episode, what did you think about the climax of the episode of the room breaking apart? Personally, I kind of found that to be a little like just kind of throw in a conflict here.
Yeah, that part that led up to it too felt a little bit forced. Like you were saying, not cringy, but it was like, why do you exist, Smokey? Why do you exist?
It's like we know they beat Jasper. They're awesome. Like we saw it. If this had been
what are you? What more is what are you about? What more is there to you? And then look, I don't know what I am. I don't know what you want me to say. And then Sardonyx is like, oh, I messed this all up. Oh, I'm like, well.
Here's the better question, Sardonyx. Why are you here? Smokey's here because they wanted to show off Smokey. Sardonyx had no reason to form. Why did they form Sardonyx? I guess they were excited. Like, do you have any idea why they just all of a sudden, hey, here's Sardonyx?
I don't know.
Right?
I assumed it was because Sardonyx was going to teach Smokey a little bit more about fusion, but instead she just kind of grilled really hard about why. Yeah, that's what I was saying. This episode I didn't see it coming, but I also didn't understand why they went in this direction rather than a more of like a training, like how Steven and Amethyst did a training session. Why didn't Sardonyx do a training session with Smokey?
Yeah, so basically, if I had to kind of sum it up for me anyway, I enjoyed the episode for the jokes and for how strange and surreal it was, but the message of the episode and a lot of the little bits in there really just didn't click for me. I didn't. It's like, why is this episode here? Why this conflict at the end seems to be a little hackneyed? Why is Sardonyx just popping up? Why the stage show? Why is she basing these things off of Opal and the birds? Like, of course that's the episode we saw, but there's no reason why. The episode seemed to be solved with just like, dude, yo-yos are cool. Like, and if Sardonyx had gotten that from the start, we would have had no episode. Well, I wish we had gotten this for Opal instead, so we could have actually learned something about Opal. Because
what's up with that? I mean, I have my own assumptions about Opal, but yeah, that's like, why this? And at the end, the most like part of it all is okay. So what? They did the episode. They're trying to make meta jokes, make fun fusion jokes, but at the end, we never learn anything more about Smokey really other than the yo-yo, and that feels like a really kind of strange moral. Like, oh yeah, we tried to drill down and really know Smokey, but just the yo-yo.
I mean, I guess if you were to get technical, the message is like, you don't have to know who you are or whatever, you just exist. But yeah, I honestly, like, it's like, here, let's take an entire episode to talk about smoky quartz, but let's not actually say anything about smoky quartz. You know what I mean? It's like, and I feel like everything we did learn, quote unquote, we saw here was stuff we already learned about in previous episodes. It was cool to see two fusions in a more relaxed setting where there wasn't fighting and there wasn't dinner conflicts happening. Yeah, so it's like, I like some of the elements, but I think as an episode, it didn't all come together.
Yeah, that's basically it. The only thing that this episode made me think about more is just the meaning of fusion, which wasn't really talked about in the episode, but just the idea that, I guess I just was thinking about earlier in the week about Jasper talking about each gem is made for a specific reason. They're technicians, they're scouts, they're warriors, they're builders. Then fusions in that society are complete anomalies because fusions are combinations and they're not built with a purpose. They're
different fusions, because ruby fusions like that, like combining to just be a bigger ruby, makes sense in terms of like, you need a bigger ruby? Here you go. You got a bigger ruby.
Yeah, exactly. If you want a more powerful ruby, but they wouldn't, if a sapphire and a ruby fused to make garnet, it's like, wow.
Scandal.
That's not just an anomaly. That's like an affrontment to nature. Both gems have their own thing. So it is very just kind of cool and illuminating, but that's just like me thinking, it's not really in the episode.
it is kind of weird too, because you wouldn't imagine, and I know fusion is more than the sum of their parts, and this doesn't mean 1-to-1, but it is weird because you would not see Garnet like grilling Smokey, like, who are you? Why do you exist? You would not see Garnet saying that. And I know that doesn't mean that Sardonyx can't say that, but it is kind of weird, isn't it? Like, that's not how Garnet would have reacted to Smokey. We see how Garnet reacts, and that's adorable. Her just constant low screaming, because that's like as loud as she gets.
That was so great. I guess a part of it is Pearl's personality too. It's Pearl is like wants to know more and everything. But I kind of still wish it wasn't in the TV show, because the Roadrunner episode with Peridot was already very Looney Tunes and goofy and funny. But this like meta fourth wall breaking TV show within a TV show is so different for Steven Universe, and it also makes it feel strange because it's like two fusions should be so much fun to interact with, but instead it feels like a little bit of a weird commentary on a commentary. And then we're commenting on that too, so it feels like that was just like looping on itself.
Someone do a reaction video to this discussion video.
Yeah, it does start looping on itself.
All right, so with all of that, let's sum up the whole week in general. If I were arranging the episodes, I wouldn't have put that right after the Looney Tunes episode, but maybe they did it for a reason. Maybe they didn't want to get into like a new story arc until the Summer of Steven was over. Maybe we're going to get another bunch of human episodes following. Sorry. But either way, even with it there, it still does provide a crazy variety with the episodes we got, where there's one where Steven's floating out in space just with another ruby. It's almost like a bottle episode, that one, in a way. Even though it's literally infinite space, it's still just one location. It's a
bubble episode. It's not a bottle episode.
Oh, you got me there. We got that. We got Roadrunner. We got weird stage show. We got epic, new fusion and battle between that and Jasper. We got info dumps. We got Ruby. Like, there was a lot this week, and that was great. This is my favorite week. I loved last week, but this one, come on, like.
Yeah, no, this week it's everything. It had funny jokes, that had the moon, it had corrupted fusion, had plot, learn more about Rose, Diamonds. Like, honestly, it was missing a new song. It still had a song. But sure. I would have loved if Peridot and Lapis broke out into song about meat morphs or whatever.
Here's a thought. Almost every non-corrupted gem was seen this week. Outside of Yellow Diamond and Blue Pearl and Yellow Pearl or whatever. Outside of them and Bismuth.
Centipedal, maybe?
Well, she's not purified, so I'll exclude. Yeah. Just that. Almost all of them were here with the rubies and Jasper. And even we get to see some of the corrupted gems. And there's even a gem fusion monster that Jasper has collected, which was interesting that those are still around even though the cluster arc is over, which makes sense that they wouldn't just disappear. There'd still be a few left hanging, right? Like, isn't that cool that we got pretty much every character?
That's really nice. And I know it's difficult just because out of all the gems, we want to see the gems, right? If I'm not sad that we don't get to see Sadie and Lars and things, I'm like, okay, I'm totally fine having more Peridot in episodes, having more Amethyst. But yeah, it was awesome. I can't even believe how many characters they packed in, including all the rubies.
Yeah, I mean, Lapis didn't really get to do too much, but she still had her big bit with the Meat Morphs at the beginning, and she got a cameo in at least in 2 of the other episodes. So yeah, so like just from that aspect, like that's really cool. They packed as like everything they could into these episodes, and it was great to have the 4-parter air in 3 days. And I think technically it's a 3-parter, and Beta doesn't count, or like, I don't know, one of them, but it's a 4-parter. All 4 episodes lead into each other, and all 4 of them, well, 3 out of 4 of them have Steven have the ripped shirt, which I think was meant to just symbolize that this is happening at the same time. I don't know that there was any deeper meaning to that.
I was wondering about that little cut in the shirt. Is it supposed to symbolize, there's a fracture in the crystal gems, like on the star, like he's learning more, he's like it's peeling back the layers or something? I don't know, but it's something definitely to do with the fact that all the episodes are connected, so you get to see that throughout all the episodes we watch.
My thought is that he should have just drooled on his shirt and it would have fixed, because as we saw, he can fix the bear, his little stuffed bear, so he could fix his shirt if he just like,
I know, wow. That would have been great.
That would have been pretty funny. But yeah, we get to see that. We get to see a lot of Steven's powers. We got the healing, the cracked ruby.
Yeah.
His shield a few times. His bubble seen in the entirety of Bubbled. So it's cool to see that, new fusion. I mean, heck, even, thinking back to the characters, if you include the fact that Opal, Sugilite, and Alexandrite and Stevani are mentioned, that's even like all the fusions, that's pretty cool. What, let's see. Amethyst and her new form from last week are, I guess, sticking around. Maybe at some point she'll get a different form, but like this doesn't seem to be just a temporary few episode thing, because it's been here for like 6 or 7 at this point. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so I mentioned this in the season 3 discussion, which is that
Week
I
3.
kind of thought it was pretty plain, but at the same time, I like it because it makes her stand out when there's group shots, and it makes you put more attention on her in general, because all the other times she has like muted color. We've seen it, it's dark and purple, and now it's like very white. And that makes her stand out a little bit more. But I know, I kind of wish it was a little bit more.
I kind of want her to go back to something that looked a little closer to her previous outfit, just personally. I don't hate the new design, but I feel like it served its purpose. It was cool to have it for her little gotta get Jasper, got Jasper, became Jasper, all that. And now I feel like maybe do something. But the tricky part is that you can't really do that without her getting poofed. But I mean, I get you could poof her in any way. We had a whole episode where she gets poofed like 8 times. So
I don't know. Maybe it's just more fun for the storyboard artist to draw it. It doesn't bother me. So that's my basic conclusion. If it doesn't bother me, then I'm totally okay with it. And then also we even see Steven having a new power in Bubbled we didn't mention, which is like, I guess we can make the bubble form shapes. Besides the spiky bubble, he can make like a bubble lasso
shot type thing. Yeah.
Overall, this week was really, really good.
You can go back and listen to our Into Deep discussion, which was the end of season 2, because this was the end of season 3 and the beginning of season 4, and kind of compare and contrast in how, I think this one just blew me away, whereas the Into Deep didn't really quite do that, even though I enjoyed a lot of it. It didn't really feel as big as it should have been, whereas this felt really big. Not just because we saw the episodes back to back in so many days, but because of everything building up to it, because we had this like Amethyst and Jasper's rivalry was built up for like, 2 or 3 episodes, but even before this week. And like the whole Rubies thing was set up a long time ago, and it makes sense why they didn't come back in. And the whole learning more about Rose and Steven's insecurities, like that was all built up and handled really well. And, even more development for Peridot and Lapis this season. And, especially kind of towards the ending of it this week, really, I think nailed it. The beginning of the Summer Steven, I was feeling a little bit like, I don't know if I want this show to do story arcs anymore, because I don't know if they really know how to do them, but now I'm feeling like they kind of have a good idea of how to sufficiently build up and then follow through on the execution of the finale.
I couldn't say it better. I definitely also felt very hesitant, because I was like, am I expecting too much from the show? And I should be pretty happy with what they can do, what they can't do. There are limitations and things, but I want to show people this week as their first introduction, even though that's like a bad idea.
Terrible idea, yeah.
I was just so blown away, and I definitely screamed multiple times. There's stuff that I didn't think they were going to follow through on, that I got yeah, I got hype. Like I was so happy with everything that turned out this week. Even things that I didn't necessarily think they needed to go into, they pulled off really well. And like I said, the humor was there. It wasn't all like very serious, dark episodes. They were still funny. They were still very Steven Universe-y.
I want to point out, to kind of highlight that as soon as, and this is props to Cartoon Network, because this is the kind of thing that shows that they're aware. As soon as the episode finished airing, there was a promo for, hey, Summer of Steven's over, but don't worry, we have new weekly episodes coming up, and here's a bunch of previews. And they mentioned that they have like fun and they have action, or they said like story or something like that. And I loved it. I loved the promo. I'll link it, on the annotation or whatever. But I love this promo because it really kind of does show this is what Steven Universe is. It's not this grim, dark action show. Maybe one or two episodes can be that, but in general, it is both lighthearted fun, but also something a little bit more. And I think they advertised it in the best way that you can do that. It wasn't stupid. If every pork chop is perfect, we wouldn't have hot dogs. Line repeated over and over again as the beginning of the show advertising was. This is now, look, we got this show that's a hybrid and it's a lot of things and we know you're hype and here you go. And I think that was cool.
Yeah.
To talk about that for a second.
I'm very happy in the show. I never lost faith in the show. I just wanted to always reevaluate, like, what am I watching this show for? Am I expecting it to be some sort of action shonen? Am I expecting it to be really plot heavy? Am I supposed to think it's goofy? And this whole Summer of Steven showed that it could be everything. It could have human episodes. It can have Steven learns more about his power episodes. It can have a lot of episodes about plot and go and highlight different types of characters and this was such a great summer. We want to talk more about that.
Yeah. We're kind of, we segued a little bit ago, talking about the whole Summer of Steven and the idea of it versus like a Steven Bomb or weekly episodes. Let me just say that thank the heavens that this Summer of Steven was the way it was, because I don't know, man, if those that first week and a half of episodes, not all of them, but some of them, the human episodes, if we had to wait like weekly episodes and we got the new Lars and Kiki's Pizza Delivery and Restaurant Wars and all of that as like, well, here's all your Steven Universe for like 2 months, I would have been very disappointed.
It would have been exhausting. I calculated what percentage of episodes were in each theme. There's about 4 episodes that are about humans, and then there's 4 episodes, 44 minutes, and then there's like 3 episodes about Steven's power, so that's like 33 minutes. But the rest of the episodes are basically about the gems and plot, which is what I think me and Pie Guy really like, is we like the gem episodes because those are fun characters to follow. So calculating all the time, we got about 2.5 hours of gem plot episodes throughout all these seasons, which is great. It's just really great.
I mean, we've had other discussions about the human episodes and stuff, and I don't want to make it sound like they're all just like awful or anything, but it's almost a different kind of show than the other parts of the show, and to have to wait even longer to get to the good parts, the more interesting parts than the less interesting parts. Yeah. What did you think if, hypothetically, I don't know this is the case, but if we had to have those hiatuses in order to have this Summer of Steven, do you think it was worth it?
I'm very mixed on this because I had an extremely difficult time with the Summer of Steven because every single day there was spoilers everywhere and there were leaks and there was so much content to talk about. And I always felt like I can't go online. I can't go on my normal YouTube or forums or anything because there's every single day there's new stuff coming out. And I don't want to be necessarily like looking over my shoulder like, oh God, at any moment there could be a spoilery thumbnail. There could be something else happening.
And there's a lot of them on YouTube.
Yeah. Or like even on my Twitter feed, like, I don't want to prevent people from enjoying the show, but it's a very crazy experience getting like 3.5 hours of content of the show all at once after getting it piecemeal. So that's a lot of the fandom and stuff. How did you feel about just watching the episodes? It was fun, but maybe also still a lot. I like the episodes, but every single day having another episode still like kind of was like, oh my God, this never ends. It's just like a lot of content. Maybe it's just because I was so used to waiting for so long and then just like having that one episode, like that one little bit of candy. This felt like being on a sugar rush, like every single day, more and more and more. On the other hand, I don't necessarily want there to be only one episode a month. I would like there to be a good balance of episodes.
There are going to be weekly episodes. Don't worry. I think starting this Thursday. So
That's my perspective.
Yeah, I think. Well, first of all, to talk about what you began to talk about with the leaks and the fandom and stuff. Yeah, in terms of that stuff, and that stuff is not. It's not the show. The show isn't defined by that. But unfortunately, the leaks do affect how you feel about the show because it's like if I had saw Smoky Quartz ahead of time, I would have felt very sad. I saw Corrupted Jasper ahead of time. I saw that, and that kind of bummed me out. But thankfully, I didn't see it. But yeah, it unfortunately ruins things. And look, honestly, if you want to watch leaks, I don't care. Like, I really don't care that they're out there. It sucks that they're out there in general, I think. But once they're out there, I can understand why, some people feel the need to go and watch them. But I hate it when people put them in thumbnails of YouTube videos that you can't avoid because it's suggested. I hate it when people post things in places on Twitter when I'll, post something and someone will reply with, oh, don't worry, the episode is just this. And it's like, that sucks. That truly sucks. And it's the Summer of Steven kind of helped and hindered that. It helped in that you didn't have to wait long to see the episodes. It's not like you saw the spoiler months ahead of time. I know a lot of people were spoiled for Super Watermelon Island and that, that must have sucked to have to wait to see the rest of the episode or whatever. But at the same time, it does kind of suck because there's so many episodes, so there's so many spoilers, and so many leaks, and so much crazy stuff happening, and it does suck. But to speak only of the episodes, I loved this. Honestly, and I mean, I'll tell you this as someone who doesn't have too much going on right now in terms of responsibilities and stuff. So it's not like, when am I going to find time to watch this episode? I loved it. Having something to look forward to, like a short little 11-minute burst to look forward to all day, really just kind of I don't know, just makes life better. Just having something very special, very cool, especially because of the wait, because of all the weeks of no Steven. Now here's just a ton of Steven, a metric ton of new gems and fusions and just craziness. I loved it. And I honestly, I think it was worth the wait. I don't think Cartoon Network will ever do this again with Steven Universe anyway. And I am also happy that they found a groove where they're finally just doing weekly episodes. But I did love this. I did have a blast with this. And I kind of wonder if I'm ever going to have as much fun watching Steven Universe as I had this summer with just the crazy content of the episodes and with just having it all at once.
Yeah, I think, it's good to distinguish the actual show from the fandom because, I mean, we go online and we do it. But if you were just watching it, on television, you didn't have to, keep up with people.
If you didn't have the internet. Yeah, if you were just watching the show.
If you're just watching the show, it is really nice. It is very nice, basically, come home and have something new waiting for you. Just kind of go into your YouTube and get new subscriptions, they're ready for you to watch. It's fun.
And I'd like to point out the fact that Cartoon Network even put the new episodes up the night they aired on their website, the full episodes. You might have to sign in with a cable provider, but they were there the night. Usually new episodes pop up online on official sources the next day or 3 a.m. or whatever. But the fact that they were on it, if my girlfriend missed an episode, by the time she got home from work, it was up for us to watch. And I think that was really cool. I think, again, not to go back to it, but I think Cartoon Network really kind of showed a lot of awareness with the Summer of Steven that was very lacking previously with the show. That's really cool.
Yeah, I think overall I had a really wonderful time watching the show, and it was fun. It was fun that every single day I was looking and saying, guess what? New Steven. Guess what? New Steven. More episodes. And that's fun.
Especially with the way the cliffhangery nature of this week's episodes and last week's Crack the Whip led right into Steven vs. Amethyst, just like Beta led right into Earthlings, which led right into Back to the Moon, which led right into Bubbled, which then led right into the Looney Tunes episode, even if indirectly, at a different time. It still was about cleaning up Jasper's mess. And then it led into Smoky Quartz, more talking about Smoky Quartz, which was something in the earlier episode. So I think it's like the Netflix strategy of just throw up the whole season at once and go nuts, kids.
The thing that I want to take away from the Summer of Steven is Steven Universe is a very strange show, but the experience of watching Steven Universe is even crazier because you have whatever, I don't know how many months, 8 months. It was felt like a really long time where there was a big hiatus. There was a couple episodes, big hiatus. And then we have this summer, which is just the most, I don't know if there are other shows that are not just public access shows that have such high production every single day having a new episode. Just, blew me away. I'm excited to see more episodes. I'm okay with going back to weekly format, and we'll see when the next hiatus is or whenever. But do you know if they're still doing Steven Bombs, if they're planning to do 5 episodes in a week again?
I have no idea. I don't. The fact that they did all these episodes and the fact that they're going back to a weekly schedule says no.
Okay.
I kind of hope not, because I would rather either have Summer of Steven or weekly episodes. The week-long bombs were a neat experiment, and if it comes at the end, maybe of weekly episodes, that's a good idea. But to just kind of throw out, here's like 5 weekly episodes, and then like 2 months later, here's Steven's birthday bomb, and then
Yeah.
like 3 months later, here's In Too Deep. I don't like that. I don't think that's a good way to air the episode.
Yeah.
Honestly, maybe if that was the case, maybe if there was like a 5-part episode that was truly 5 parts, or even if it had just they all led directly into each other, that could be a cool way to do a bomb where it's just like, it's basically like a mini series. It's like, here's Steven Universe's take on stakes or
Mhm.
something. That would be a cool way to do Steven bombs. But otherwise, I think I speak for a lot of the fandom when I say weekly episodes are a very good thing.
And yeah, that's about it.
Yes, that's all I have to say. I don't.
But yeah, we got a lot to look forward to, and there's still more fusions to come. Everyone, I don't know, I can't get enough of fusions, basically. Like, after you get Spokey, you get Opal, you get Sugalite and Sardonyx, you're like, more. I want more. I want every single possible combination.
What does Steven and Sapphire look like? What is that fusion? What?
Yeah, I know. Everyone's like, oh, I want this. I want Lapis. I want this or that. It's just fun. It's fun. The potential is still there.
Oh yeah.
In the background.
Fusions are such a great way to get us hyped for characters we don't even know. Like, we know they're there. We know they're probably gonna exist at some point, but we still don't know anything about them. That's just fusion is one of the coolest conceits on the show.
I hope you guys enjoyed this discussion and enjoy the weekly episodes coming out.
Make sure you check out the other discussions if you haven't seen them. And with that, PIEGUYRULZ out.
Bye, everybody.